Ladies and gentlemen, happy holidays from all of us at Hugo Sports 360. Hope you guys really enjoy this interview. I'm currently editing it. It gets a bit choppy due to some Wi-Fi issues, but hope you guys enjoy it. Some updates. Carlos Correa has also had some problems with the Mets, but it looks like he will stay there. But thank you, Adam, for coming on the show, and I hope you guys like it. If you do, please like and subscribe. So have a great day. Adios.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Chilling, bro. Just trying to get some crap done before Christmas and try to kick back, relax, watch some bowl games here, starting in about 45 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
All right. Yeah, Giants have been making some weird moves. The most confusing of it was the Correa. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, I was of the belief that if the Giants were going to make a splash this offseason, he was the best suited for a long-term sort of rebuild. And something the Giants never do is like openly admit a rebuild. They're always retooling, right? That sort of happened in 2017 after they missed out on the playoffs and had that bad year. In 2018, things sort of went downhill and they had to reconfigure the top of the organization and go with Farhan. So the move, like, I know everybody wanted Aaron Judge, and it would have been awesome. Would have been cool. Would have been a ton of hype. Would have been the biggest move since Barry Bonds in 92, in the winter of 92, going into 93. But I thought for the stability of the team, if you wanted Aaron Judge, I didn't understand why you wouldn't want Carlos Correa. He's younger. He's more versatile. His bat plays to all fields. He's not a pure power guy. He's a platinum gold glove fielder. I didn't understand the distaste in wanting him. Now, I understand people going, it's 13 years. You can't give up 13 years and that much money. It's like $26.9 million a year, something like that. That's kind of the price of doing business in professional baseball today. So I thought the contract was great. Now, when the rug gets pulled out, the oddest thing to me, or the strangest thing to me, was that the Giants, after pulling the press conference and deciding they had some inconsistencies or disagreements on the physical, was that they didn't recontact Scott Boras at all. But he sat around till 1:30 in the afternoon and said, well, I got to move on. I got to get as much money as I can. And when that happens for an agent, one, it's rare that something like this happens. Two, it's super rare that the guy's able to get about as much money as he was going to get right before when there's a concern about a physical. But I think pretty much what happened is Scott Boras had to have gone to the Mets and said, look, it's just a bunch of bull. Right? There's no real injury here. And so when we find out the Giants were concerned about an ankle injury that he had 8 years ago, that has never once put him on the injured list at the big league level. And really, he's only been on the injured list once, I believe, since 2019. And it was for a finger contusion last year, Carlos Correa, and a COVID stint. So he's a guy who I think is going to hold up. I think the Mets got a really good player. And the Giants, I don't really know with the moves they made this morning with Conforto. I mean, getting Taylor Rogers is a move they probably should have made anyway. But getting Michael Conforto, I know they needed somebody else. They needed a bat, an established big leaguer. But I don't know what the team philosophy is. And I guess that's what's frustrating for Giants fans. And the organization has said nothing. I'm of the belief this has nothing to do with Farhan Zaidi. This has more to do with the ownership group and somebody who got cold feet.
So I mean, there's been a lot of like audio clips going around from KNBR. I remember hearing one. Can't remember. I think it was from Murph or Mac. I think it was from Murph. I think, and he talked about it, his teenage kids throwing phones into the couches and acting like being so shocked about this. Were you shocked when you heard the news?
Yeah, and some people were like, yeah, I was actually sitting on my couch, watching TV with my girlfriend, and I was, playing Madden in the middle of a heated Madden franchise mode, actually, at the time that the notification came in. And so I'm on Twitter all the time. I flip open Twitter and I see the John Heyman news, and it was like, 11 o'clock at night, something like that. And I kind of did like the double take thing, like, the cartoon Looney Tunes thing where your eyes like pop out of your head. And I was like, wait a minute. And like, then my brain kind of fritzed, you know what I mean? And I was like, wait, I don't really understand, because the breaking news was not Carlos Correa is no longer negotiating with the Giants. It was just he's agreed to terms with the Mets for 12 years. And so then my first reaction, which I think a lot of people's first reaction, is this the real John Heyman Twitter account? So you sit there and you stare at it for a minute, you click on the account, you exit, you click it again, you're like, I was sort of at a loss for words. I was up till about 3:30 in the morning after that, because once it happened, I was like, okay, so I'm not going to bed until we find out why this happened. And of course it never did. It was shocking. It was pretty shocking. Stuff like this does not happen. For mega contracts like this, and there aren't that many $300 million 13-year contracts, right? I mean, every $300 million contract that's ever been handed out in baseball is still going on right now. I think the earliest one might have been Trout. I can't remember who that could have been. Mookie. I can't remember who the first guy was, but all those contracts are still in the midst of playing out right now. So we don't know how some of these things are going to age. It was an absolute shock, I think, because you don't see teams and players come to terms like that and then have something so hidden or secretive or not really real at all. Like, it's pretty clear the Giants didn't really have an issue with the medicals. They had an issue with this deal, or believed that this was not the right thing to do. Somebody, and maybe it was Charles Johnson, the principal owner at 27% of the team, said, I don't feel comfortable writing this check, even if the injury history is, I'm not going to say fabricated. It's just sort of wear and tear. Like Scott Boras said, guys don't get to 8 years in the big leagues, get a scan on their body, and have nothing wrong with them. It's what happens. Guys' bodies age differently. Now, what's so funny about that is the ownership group had no problem handing Buster Posey an 8-year extension. Now, I know he won an MVP. I know he won World Series. I know he won a Rookie of the Year. Hadn't won a Gold Glove yet, but you handed Buster Posey an 8-year extension on a far more severe leg injury in 2011 when Scott Cousins ran him over, from 2011 that you watched play out. He had a degenerative hip problem, had to have hip surgery. Like, he was a catcher. There was no precedent for handing Buster Posey the contract they did, except that in baseball generally you get paid for things that you've already done, not things they're hoping you'll do, which is why a lot of times free agent contracts aren't worth the value. So it was a shock. I mean, we had a guy on, Ronald Blum, who writes for the Associated Press. He broke the story about the Giants calling that press conference and why it happened. And he said, I asked him how normal is this? Is it unprecedented that this happens? He said, it's pretty strange that it happened like this. He said about 3 of these happen every year, never at this stage or this level. It happened with Grant Balfour a few years back. It happened with a couple of other guys who were more mid-level guys. So it'll happen like 3 times a year, but we don't hear about it as much because it's not big name players. But he said generally when the team doesn't end up still re-signing him, they'll renege the contract. They'll, figure out outs. If that happens, usually it's because the team still wants the player. He said about 1 in every 5 to 10 years ends up back home with the guys. And I was like, okay, so if we're going 3 a year, 10 years, that's 30 guys. About 1 in 30 guys doesn't end up re-signing. Unfortunately, this time around, the Giants were the team that sort of took the hit.
So the Giants, they've been building up, spending a lot on their pitching rotation, most notably with Manea and Stripling, and now with Trevor Rogers. And I mean, as you stated, Conforto and Trevor Rogers being signed today was kind of, did you see it as kind of like a backup, like trying to get the fans happy?
I don't really think this is what's interesting is, like, they went into the offseason saying they wanted they've been paraphrased a bunch. And this was not a quote from Farhan, but I think he's misquoted on this a lot. People keep saying they said they wouldn't be outspent. It's not something he said. That was something a writer from New York who covered the Yankees said. The Giants will not be outspent in their pursuit of Aaron Judge. And they weren't. I mean, this is the thing. Is fans are really upset. They got a player to agree. Carlos Correa was dressed and ready to go to the press conference. He was in the hotel room with his mother-in-law, his father-in-law, his brother, his wife. He had family with him. He was ready to go. He wanted to be here. He decided, I'm going to go to the Giants for 13 years. He didn't turn his back on the Giants. The Giants decided, we don't want to do this deal. So, and because the Giants decided, and again, Farhan Zaidi does not unilaterally make that decision. If the ownership group decided, we want this guy, Carlos Correa, right now, Farhan Zaidi would have nothing to do. He could have, they could sign him without his say-so. They could go out and, do you think Farhan wanted to sign Bryce Harper the first year he got here? I don't know. Based on the way he's done things, I find that hard to believe, to hamstring himself that early on with that type of contract that had never been handed out. Larry Bear was flying to Vegas with Farhan like every week to try to sway Bryce to come, because of the gravitational pull that would have in terms of eyes on their team. Now, you mentioned Trevor Rogers. Yeah, they got Taylor Rogers. Tyler.
Oh
Rogers,
yeah, I always get.
I know, dude. I mentioned him too. Trevor Rogers is a Marlin.
Yeah,
or he was a Marlin, a reliever. Anyway, yeah,
he was really good in his first year.
Yeah, he was good. Back in 2020, I think is when he came up. Yeah. Anyway, Taylor Rogers. This is a move like we heard all offseason, and we knew all offseason the Giants needed to get another late inning relief guy to put in front of Camilo Doval. They didn't really have that last year. I think at times they were hoping. Well, they signed Trevor Rosenthal at one point and flipped him. They were hoping. I think he was going to be a guy at one point for them if they were competitive. The bullpen was not nearly as good, and so that was maybe the most surprising element of last year. The defense falling off. I guess it happens. They were an older team last year, one of the older teams, and they just didn't have premium defensive talent. So I didn't anticipate good defensive play. I didn't think it would be as bad. But the biggest surprise to me was the huge drop off in how good the pitching was and the depth of the pitching in 2021 when they won 107. I mean, that's what's going to win you games. That's what's going to keep you in games. And that was sort of my thought when they didn't land Aaron Judge is, even if you don't get Carlos Correa, maybe you do like why don't you angle yourself towards what can keep you competitive? And that's elite defensive play and great pitching and great pitching depth. Now, I think Ross Stripling's a really good pitcher, and I would have loved to add Ross Stripling no matter what. I think Manaea's fine. He hasn't been good for the last couple of years. Really not since he threw that no-hitter a few years back against the Red Sox at the Coliseum. But it's hard to sell me as a fan on the idea that this rotation is going to be better, albeit deeper than the one we had last year, because Carlos Rodon's not there. Carlos Rodon was a Cy Young candidate. He was competing for the strikeout title for most of all of last year before they shut him down. There was talk about trading him to the Yankees, and now you lose him to the Yankees for $162 million, and you got nothing to show for it. So when we go back and we look at the moments in the season that are ones that are sort of regretting or regretful, I think, for the Giants in 2022, not trading Carlos Rodon is a big one. Going back to Bumgarner, I know people thought maybe Farhan should have moved Bumgarner and should have got something for him. I thought he had a pretty nice offseason that year, his first trade deadline. He went out and he got Mauricio Dubon. He got rid of the Melanson contract. Although I found this out last week, just a side note, this is hilarious. Pretty sure the Giants are still paying Mark Melanson $1 million a year for it might be the next couple of years. So
Really?
I was like, dude, I don't know how many. I don't mean to work
That's
blue on
insane.
your podcast, but I was like, you have got to be shitting me, dude. This guy's still taking
That's
money out of our pocket.
insane.
So for everybody who's mad about the prices of food and beer at the ballpark, just remember Mark Melanson is still getting a cut of your money, dude. But I think going pitching is a good idea. I'm not sold that this rotation is better than the one last year.
Yeah, the Giants, they have some good future to them. I was a bit confused with signing Carlos Correa because you also have Marco Luciano coming, and then a lot of the fans are really attached to Brandon Crawford, who a lot of people are speculating whether or not it'll be his last year. But you also have Luciano, you got Luis Matos, you got, Sean Jelly, you've got Joey Bart's kind of, you never know, and you got Patrick Bailey. What do you think? What do you think the future outlook of the Giants will be?
Well, dude, I think I really all the names you just mentioned are names that we've been talking about now for years, right? I mean, Patrick Bailey's a newer one. Like, where's Hunter Bishop? Hunter Bishop's about to be 25 years old.
That's true. He's going to be 25.
He's going to be 25 this season. Patrick Bailey is going to be 24, I think, sometime in May. I can't remember exactly when his birthday is. Patrick Bailey, though, he'll be 24. These guys who go to college, if you don't shoot through the minor leagues, you start your big league career at 25, 26 years old sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But is that good for sustainable success? And where is that blue chip player, right? This is the issue I have, too, is people are going, just build through the system. We don't need to go with Carlos Correa. That's cool. Except that this year, when Juan Soto became available, Farhan Zaidi and the Giants went to the Nationals and said, you can have whoever you want. And I'm of the belief, and I don't know for sure, I'm of the belief that Logan Webb might have been on the table too. And if I don't want to do it, but I probably would have done it for Logan Webb also. If they wanted a heap of prospects and Logan Webb, I'd have been like, yeah, cool, take Kyle Harrison, take Logan Webb. But I'd probably do it with and I don't think you could know this until you got him. You probably couldn't do it until you know absolutely that he's going to resign with you. And that's something that the Padres are going to have to deal with in Juan Soto. But the Nationals looked at all the prospects and just went, what does that tell you about where we are? I mean, we got a little bit of a look at Elliot Ramos. This guy's supposed to be coming for like 6 years now. Now, I can't put that on Farhan and this brass because they're not the guys who drafted Elliot Ramos. They're not the guys who drafted Marco Luciano. That said, it felt like Marco Luciano was a little parting gift from Bobby Evans, right? He just kind of left him there to marinate. And he looks like he's going to be a good player. He still has not played above high A. He's 21 years old. He's been down there for like 4 years. He earned rookie ball. I think he played in Eugene with as high as he went last year. So he's been good. By comparison, Kyle Harrison was the best pitch year being AAA. And I think we're going to see Kyle Harrison potentially at some point at the back half of the season. So as far as minor leaguers go, show me one that Farhan Zaidi is responsible for. It's been 4 years. He's entering year 5, and we have nothing from the minor league system that has reached the big league level since he's gotten here, except for Logan Webb, who is not a guy he drafted, and Camilo Doval, who was here since like 2018 or 2017 or something in the system. So, I'm of the belief you can build there. I'd like to build there, but where is it, man? Where's the talent? That's maybe the most alarming thing about where we are. One playoff season that really is a fluke, and it happened because Buster Posey, Brandon Crawford, and Brandon Belt had career years, not because, and the pitching was fantastic, but not because Farhan built this finely tuned operating machine. It was every button pushed hit that year. I mean, Donovan Solano, Lamont Wade Jr. And I'm not saying these guys can't be good. I'm just saying for prospects, I'm always willing to trade prospects because that's all they are. How many times have we heard about prospects that never panned out? Giants haven't produced an outfield prospect in what? Who's the last outfield prospect that they developed that made an all-star team? Was it like Chewy Davis or something? And like, no joke, it's like something that ridiculous. They have not produced an outfielder who's made an all-star team in that long. So I'm if you can get players and get talent elsewhere, I say use your prospects to do it. That's what we're seeing teams do, like the Braves, like the Dodgers, like the Astros, like the Rays, even who are low budget. You build from within, and then that's your sort of currency to go get big time players. So I'm not confident if that's what we're asking. I need to see more because they haven't showed us any.
What do you think is the Giants' peak for wins this year?
Gabe Kapler's their manager, so probably like 80, 81. I don't know. Hasn't he done that like a bunch of times? I mean, I think when he was a Philly, how long was he in Philly? 2 years or 3 years?
2, I think. And he was always,
Years.
he was really mid. He was always like 81, 83,
I think he might
84.
have gone like 80 and 82, and then like 81 and 81 or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I think he was like right in the middle of the pack. So, I don't know. It's funny because they were 6 games out of the playoffs this year. I think the Phillies were the second wild card team. They're 6 games behind the Phillies, right? They had 87 wins.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
but were they really? You know what I mean? Like you remember the back part of the season, dude. The last like month,
Yeah.
like in September. September used to be like nice. Giants are cruising towards the playoffs. Or you're in a hunt, or you're getting a look at some young talent. They had like Jarrell Cotton thrown innings for him at the end of last year. They had like I saw a headline a couple weeks ago. It said like, oh dude, who was that guy? They had this other guy, some other starting pitcher. I can't remember. God, Shelby Miller. Is that who it was? Was he a Giant at the end of last year?
I think, yeah. I
Dude,
think we
I think he
DFA'd
pitched
him.
in. Yeah, but I think he was throwing. And I think I saw a headline that was like Shelby Miller not expected to return to Giants. And I was like, God, dude, like what? Can't believe that's even a note. Like, why do we need to make note of the fact that he's not like we shouldn't be returning him? So it's the record. I don't think last season was indicative of how bad that team was, but also it was dreadfully boring, man. Like you got to have talent in the lineup, not just in the starting rotation. Because if I'm going to the game with you're bringing your kids, your family, you're going to have to see like what once every 5 days you get Logan Webb or Carlos Rodon, and Gabe Kapler might pull him after 5, and you're like, what are we doing? You get 2 at bats from your superstar, not superstar, but Jack Peterson's the one guy who might hit some bombs, and you pull him out because he in the 4th because of a matchup. But what about the at bat in the 8th? If you're going to leverage your closer that way, why don't we leverage the lineup that way? Why is if the end of the game is the last 3 outs are so important? Why are the last 3 at bats not so important? So I don't know. I think changes are necessary probably at this point, and I don't know that it's far on. Maybe it's in the ownership group, but if somebody put their foot down and said we're not going to sign this guy, and it was one person unilaterally who had that power for Carlos Correa, you can't tell me they're better off going forward without Carlos Correa than they were with him. Even if you didn't like the move, they would have been a better.
But yeah, the Giants, they've made some decent signings. Mitch Haniger outfielding. The outfield has kind of built some depth. What would you say is the position the Giants have the most depth at, and what would you say the position they have the least depth at, and where they need to really just build?
Least depth is definitely catcher. Most depth. God, that's a good question. Most depth is probably outfield now. I mean, honestly, dude, they have a big league outfield now. Like, their outfield's not that bad. Like, people are ripping on Conforto, but like, dude, if you had added Correa and then Conforto, people would be hyped. You know what I mean? Like, it would be like, oh, sweet, these are great moves. My brother said that to me this morning. He's like, yeah, I really like these moves way more like 4 days ago. I was like, yeah, me, I'm with you. They would have been great. And it's sort of like these Stripling and Manaea moves right before, didn't they get somebody else? Haniger, you said. Stripling, Manaea, Haniger. And then Correa added to that, you're like, oh, wow, that's a nice offseason haul. But when it happens and then you lose Correa and then you add these guys, people think it's just not getting Correa. And it's not just making up. They still have to field the team. And the thing that's really bothered me, the Giants are becoming the Oakland A's. That's not what's happened here. And the ownership group, well, this is a major, major, major stepped in dog shit moment for them. And it's one of the worst situations I think fans have been through in this generation. People don't remember that in the 70s, the Giants were awful. At Candlestick Park, they were drawing like 2009. That was bad, right? Like, that was really bad. That's why they almost moved, right? The fans who were like, the team's going to move. Nobody was going. It's not like people were going to games. the A's fans too. The difference here is that there are no the A's fans have been alienated by their owners. So to say that they're being operated like the A's, which is hilariously off base and a false equivalency, the A's right now, do you know how much money is committed to their payroll right now? It's $22 million as of December 23rd committed, and it's projected to be about 46 or 48 million after arbitration and that stuff. Giants are at 122. That's not big relative to what the league numbers are for a big market team, of course, but they're projected to be at like 150 something or 160 something. It could be upwards of that once the arbitration. And they're probably catching up. There's going to come in here because they will need I don't know base maybe or somebody who could play some versatile. Is it choppy?
Yeah, I got a little choppy towards the end.
Okay, I'll finish it up. Somebody who can play versatilely on the infield, but in terms of saying that they're like the A's, it's a slap in the face to A's fans because I mock the organization of the Oakland A's. A's fans who are going to games and are diehard baseball fans deserve to have their team and their owner care about them, and that's why Giants fans are mad because that's what it feels like right now that we're not being cared for. The A's aren't even picking up the phone and calling guys. So don't act like it's fake that they tried to negotiate with Correa. They tried to get Judge and Correa, and probably would have signed Aaron Judge had he agreed to come here, but he didn't want to come here and decided to go back to where he wanted to go. When it comes to Correa, I think Farhan wanted to lock that deal down, and he's not the guy who has the ability to say, actually, no, we're not going to do it. So this is not the same situation as the A's, and I feel bad for their fans.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's been rough with some of my friends. They've been like up and down. Correa is gonna sign, Judge is gonna sign, and then both don't sign, and they blame Farhan. I say, don't blame Farhan. Don't blame him because I still have a lot of hope for Farhan. I think he's a really, really good. Is he our PBO? Is he our president of baseball operations, or is he our GM?
Yeah, he's the president of baseball, and the general manager is Pete Patilla, who came over from the Astros organization. He's a first-time GM. I interviewed him a couple of months ago. He's an analytics kind of guy. I want to go for Farhan too, and I've been staunch. Let's wait and see. Clearly behind in terms of running an organization from where they were because they had won world championships and they were doing things the old ways where you bring back all your guys, you get the band back together. Well, the issue is that they weren't developing enough talent. They were behind the analytic vault. So I was all for like, look, we lost 98 games. Things have to change. Something has to go. I didn't want to get rid of Bochy, but maybe that was just the right time for him to leave. And I hope he's not the winning time. I hope it's him and Dusty in the ALCS next year. That would be sweet. Unlikely for Texas, but it would be cool. But in terms of the free agent stuff, it sort of feels now like the Giants are behind the 8 ball with free agency. Like the game has changed. It's a heavyweights game now. The Giants should be heavyweights, and they don't really know how to step in that ring and punch with the heavyweights. Like this is something they have not done. It's something that Farhan's never done. The biggest contract he's ever handed out, even now after the Correa thing gets flubbed, was an extension he gave to Clayton Kershaw, and then an extension he gave to Kenley Jansen when he was GM of the Dodgers. He has never given out a mega deal like that. So even though the organization, and this is the other thing, is I'm pretty sure the organization pressured him to do so. Why didn't they even talk to him last year? Like if that's something Farhan wanted. So to me, even though he came to want him, I think with the organization, yeah, if his contract's up after this year, we haven't heard about an extension yet. Would not shock me if he weren't back and if he weren't on his own reasons for the organization saying we don't want you. Because one thing I don't think Farhan's going to be is a yes man, and if he had the rug pulled out from under him after he was doing something they told him to do, there's a power struggle and some tension there, and that could be bad. But they owe us an explanation, and I can't wait to get to talk to Farhan and the ownership group because this is the most unacceptable thing the Giants have done in treatment of the fans. On not saying anything to us since it's happened. It's really awful. It's really bad.
All right. Okay, good. Final question. What has been your overall thoughts on the entire MLB off season?
I think it's been great. I think it's been a lot of fun. We've talked for a couple of years because remember the worst off season was the Manny Machado, Bryce Harper one. Like, dude, are either of these guys going to sign? It was kind of a bad free agent class, but also things have changed. And also, I just think we should note what a crock of shit it is that all these owners tried to cry poor last year in the lockout and then in COVID, and they say they can't pay these guys their contracts and we're losing money. These guys are printing money. They're printing money. Every team was just given a profit share, a revenue share of $40 million extra dollars. That's more than the A's have committed to payroll right now, and they're not even going to pick up the phone and call anybody of talent. So it's outrageous that's the case. That teams are making this much money. They're handing out these big time contracts, and then they cry poor and don't want to pay for fees of stuff for the minor leagues. So anyway, in general, the NBA is the big one, right? Stuff hits midnight and everything starts going off. NFL's like that too. Baseball trade deadline is always where it gets going, and this year it was kind of light, but free agency's been fun. Big time free agents, big time contracts, a lot of player movement, a lot of trades. That's what makes baseball fun, and it's unique in that way. You don't see it the same way. Football a little bit more now. Basketball guys bounce around a lot, but baseball, it's moves like that are a lot of fun. I think it's been a great offseason, just not for the Giants.
All right, thanks, Copes.
Appreciate you, Hugo. Keep it up, dude.
All right, thanks. All right, see ya. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys can catch Adam Copeland on his show, Tolbert and Copes, on KNBR 680, The Sports Leader, or KNBR 1045. You can catch it online at knbr.com, and I will have the link to that in the description, as I will have for all of his socials, his Instagram and his Twitter. Thank you, Adam, for coming on the show. I really enjoyed conversation, and I hope you guys have a great day. Adios.